Attention Formula One fans. Seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton is experiencing a nightmare in his new role with Ferrari. The problem? Soft tires are keeping him out of the top 10, and the Saudi Arabian GP could be his worst weekend yet. Lewis Hamilton arrived in Saudi Arabia hoping to turn around a difficult start to the season, but what he found in Jeddah was one of the most frustrating situations of his recent career. In Friday practice, the seven-time world champion could barely manage 13th place during FP2. Not only was he passed by his teammate, Charles Leclerc, but he was more than a full second behind Lando Norris's McLaren, who dominated the session. Hamilton made it clear something was wrong from the moment he put on the soft tires. His performance literally plummeted. While other drivers improved their times by switching to softer compounds, the Briton not only didn't improve, but actually worsened. In his own words, "There were some things during the session that went well for me, but switching to the softs didn't work." That statement encapsulates his frustration. It's not a simple technical setback. It's a clear symptom of a disconnect between his driving style, the behavior of the Ferrari SF-25, and the type of tires selected for this weekend. The magnitude of the problem is accentuated when Hamilton openly admits that his only realistic goal for qualifying is to finish inside the top 10. This represents a radical change for a driver who has made fighting for pole position his standard. The phrase "being able to finish in the top 10" isn't just a narrow goal, it's a warning sign for Ferrari and its supporters. Beyond pure pace, the tone with which Hamilton expressed himself is key. He's not just disappointed at not having speed, he's baffled because he doesn't fully understand why he doesn't have it. The work on adapting to Ferrari is more in-depth than it seemed at the start of the year. His frustration is evident when he admits that, normally, Saturdays tend to get worse, suggesting he doesn't have much hope for immediate improvement. The Jeddah circuit, one of the fastest and most demanding on the calendar, allows no margin for error. The need to warm up the tires quickly and keep them in their optimal operating window is vital, especially in qualifying. And that's precisely what Hamilton hasn't been able to achieve. His car can't generate the necessary temperature on the soft compounds, ruining his performance before even having a chance to attack the clock. This type of situation doesn't just affect qualifying. A poor grid position on a circuit where overtaking is extremely difficult compromises the entire race. That's why what's happening to Hamilton in Saudi Arabia goes beyond a simple failed practice. It's a symptom of a structural problem that Ferrari and Hamilton must resolve quickly if they want to remain competitive this season. Lewis Hamilton's soft tire problem in Jeddah is not an isolated case. There is a technical context that exacerbates the situation, and that context has a name: Pirelli. For the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the Italian brand decided to modify its tire selection compared to the previous year. Instead of maintaining the same range used in the first races of the calendar, it opted for a softer tire. C3 as the hard, C4 as the medium, and C5 as the soft. This decision, in theory, was intended to enhance the spectacle. Pirelli, along with the FIA and the teams, agreed that this modification would allow for more strategic variety and greater unpredictability during the race. But what on paper seemed like a positive move for the spectacle, in practice turned into a nightmare for certain drivers. Hamilton has been the most affected among them. For a driver still in the process of adapting to a completely new car, this tire choice has been a destabilizing factor. The Ferrari SF-25, despite its improvements, remains a car with a narrow operating window, especially at the rear axle. And at a track like Jeddah, where soft tires must perform immediately in extreme conditions, any weaknesses in the car are exposed to the fullest. The C5, Pirelli's softest compound, is the most sensitive to track conditions and also the most difficult to maintain in the correct temperature window. For Hamilton, who needs complete confidence in the rear axle to push to the limit, these tires are offering no guarantees. Instead, they are costing him vital tenths of a second, turning his qualifying performance into a lottery. The Jeddah street circuit adds an additional layer of difficulty. It's fast, narrow, and has few hard braking zones. Drivers spend 80% of the lap with their foot down, generating extremely high speeds but not necessarily enough heat in the tires. For many, this means grip takes a while to arrive. For Hamilton, it means it never arrives. Most worryingly, this isn't just a matter of driver adaptation. The car itself doesn't seem to be working efficiently with the C5 compound. Ferrari may be forced to reconsider its setup if it wants to avoid a repeat of this at future events on the calendar where the same tires are used. Race strategy is also influenced by this choice. Typically, soft tires are used for qualifying and then discarded for the race. But if Hamilton fails to qualify well, his Sunday strategy will be hampered from Saturday onwards. And on a circuit where overtaking opportunities are rare, this could spell doom for his aspirations. So, while most teams are analyzing how to take advantage of the soft tire range chosen by Pirelli, Ferrari and Hamilton are struggling to understand how to survive it. Ferrari entered this season with the firm intention of not repeating the mistakes of the past. After a bumpy 2024 campaign, the Maranello team worked during the winter on a package of updates that was intended to restore the car's competitiveness. The SF-25, its weapon for 2025, was conceived with a more stable architecture, more tire-friendly, and above all, with a better correlation between the wind tunnel and the track. One of the most important changes introduced was the new flat floor, which debuted at the Bahrain Grand Prix. This key component of modern aerodynamics was designed to improve downforce without penalizing drag. In initial tests, the results were positive. Drivers reported greater stability in fast corners and better traction on slow corner exits. In theory, these improvements should translate into a more predictable and efficient car in qualifying and the race. Charles Leclerc noticed this immediately. Since Bahrain, his times improved, his confidence grew, and his performance positioned him as a regular contender on the front rows. But for Lewis Hamilton, the experience has been very different. Although the updates seem to be working overall, the car is not equally suited to the styles of both drivers. Leclerc's driving style, more aggressive on corner entry and with a late braking approach, seems to fit with the new aerodynamic balance. In contrast, Hamilton, accustomed to a car with a very stable rear end, allowing him to modulate acceleration on corner exit without surprises, is struggling to find that same balance in the SF-25. The difference between the two was evident in Jeddah. While Leclerc managed to place in the top 5 in FP2, Hamilton fell outside the top 10, unable to extract the same performance from the car, either on soft tires or in the high-speed sections where the new floor should make a difference. This raises a fundamental question. Are the updates universally effective or do they only benefit one of the two drivers? And beyond that, does Ferrari truly understand how to adapt these improvements to the driving style of a 7-time world champion? The team has made it clear that it is committed to evolving the SF-25 to ensure both drivers feel comfortable. But adapting a car to the needs of two such different styles is a huge technical challenge. It requires changes to the suspension map, weight distribution, aerodynamics, and even the behavior of the differential in different phases of the corner. Time is another factor against it. Races don't wait. Every weekend on the calendar is a missed opportunity if the car doesn't respond. And while Hamilton understands that adaptation takes time, media pressure, the performance gap with Leclerc, and the need for immediate results could further strain the situation. The SF-25 has clearly made strides forward. But if those steps aren't uniform for both drivers, Ferrari risks gaining ground in one area and losing it in another. The key now is twofold. Continue developing the car and, at the same time, customize that development so Hamilton can exploit his talent without having to radically change his driving style. Because if one thing is clear at the start of the season, it's that a fast car isn't enough if it's not completely in sync with the driver. The performance gap between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix wasn't just evident in lap times. It also clearly exposed a rift in the internal adaptation process within Ferrari. Both drivers share the same car, the same technical team, and the same resources. But their on-track results are far from equivalent. Leclerc has demonstrated a remarkable ability to exploit the SF-25's potential. In practice sessions, his pace was consistent, his adaptation to the soft tires was natural, and his feedback to the team allowed for adjustments that placed him in the top 5. Hamilton, on the other hand, could barely manage 13th place. A 9-place gap on the timesheets that can't be explained solely by traffic or track conditions. It's a clear sign that Leclerc is finding the car's limits much sooner than his teammate. This type of gap is nothing new in Formula One. But when it occurs between a driver who has been with the team for years and another who is just adapting, it has significant strategic implications. Leclerc understands Ferrari's DNA, knows how the car responds in different scenarios, and how to translate his feelings into precise technical decisions. Hamilton, on the other hand, is in the midst of a learning process. A process that, given his history with Mercedes, he has never had to experience from scratch. In Jeddah, the gap was even more pronounced because both drivers chose to explore different setup paths. Ferrari, in its attempt to maximize data collection, distributed the experimental work between its two cars. While Leclerc followed a more conservative approach, focusing on aerodynamic stability and overall balance, Hamilton tried more extreme setups, playing with wing angle, chassis height, and brake balance. This divergent approach came at a cost. Hamilton finished Friday without a clear direction, without a reliable reference point, and with the frustration of having invested a full day testing pads that didn't bring him closer to ideal performance. Instead, Leclerc closed the day with confidence and a solid foundation to fine-tune his car for qualifying. In his remarks, Hamilton didn't hide his disappointment, but he also didn't miss the opportunity to express his openness to a collective solution. He acknowledged that he could use Leclerc's setup as a reference for the rest of the weekend. Not as a surrender, but as an intelligent adjustment based on immediate experience. His words were clear: "We'll probably work tonight on converging, analyzing what worked for each car and making decisions together." This kind of internal collaboration is key for teams that want to fight for titles. But it also raises a question. Should Hamilton start imitating Leclerc's approach to performance? Or should Ferrari put even more effort into developing a unique route for him? Because while the team's objective is to maximize points, Hamilton's individual goal is to compete at the highest level, not follow in his teammates' footsteps. The current gap with Leclerc is not definitive, but it is urgent. Every weekend that Hamilton falls behind reinforces the narrative that his move to Ferrari has yet to bear fruit. For a driver who arrived with expectations of immediate victory, seeing his teammate excel in the same car is a direct blow to his confidence and influence within the team. The season is long, but the internal dynamics of a team can change quickly. If the performance gap persists, Leclerc will establish himself as the absolute reference at Ferrari. And that will influence not only the development of the car, but also key strategic decisions in the race. For Hamilton, closing that gap is not just a matter of pride, it's a competitive necessity. Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari was one of the most resounding moves in recent Formula One history. It represented much more than a change of team. It was the beginning of a new era, a new challenge in the career of the seven-time world champion. But after the first few races, and especially after a weekend as complex as the one in Saudi Arabia, it's clear that the road to success will be steeper than many imagined. The problems with the soft tires are just the tip of the iceberg. What's happening to Hamilton in the SF-25 is the result of a combination of factors. A car that hasn't yet been fully adapted to his driving style, strategic decisions that leave him with no room for maneuver in qualifying, and an internal dynamic where his teammate is clearly more comfortable from the start. But there's also something deeper at play. Hamilton isn't just fighting against a difficult-to-tame car. He's fighting against time, against the expectations he himself helped build, and against a narrative that's beginning to question whether his arrival at Ferrari can translate into concrete victories. Formula One relentlessly relents. Every tenth of a second lost is one less opportunity. Every weekend without progress, one more pressure for the next. However, reducing this story to a simple question of performance would be unfair. Hamilton has demonstrated on multiple occasions his ability to overcome extreme situations. He did it in his early years with McLaren, in times of crisis with Mercedes, and during the most tense seasons of his rivalry with Verstappen. His career is marked by resilience, and that's precisely what he'll need now. Ferrari, for its part, has a responsibility to accelerate the technical integration process. It's not enough to have Hamilton on the grid. They must build him a car that allows him to do what he does best: win. And to do so, it will be key to find a balance between maintaining the development that benefits Leclerc and adapting specific areas of the SF-25 to Hamilton's preferences, especially regarding rear axle sensitivity and power delivery under traction. The real challenge isn't in a corner or a fast lap. It lies in the ability of a high-caliber team and driver to evolve together, understand their differences, and turn them into advantages. Because if they reach that point of convergence, Ferrari won't just have a champion in its garage. It will have a weapon ready to fight for everything. And while the weekend in Saudi Arabia was a setback, it could also be the turning point. A moment where real shortcomings are revealed, necessary solutions are identified, and collaborative work is activated with a clearer direction. If Hamilton has proven anything over 2 decades in elite motorsport, it's that he never underestimates a challenge. And this time with Ferrari could be his greatest challenge yet. Saudi Arabia won't be remembered as a glorious race in his career, but it could be the first step towards something much bigger. What happens in the coming weeks will be decisive. Because in Formula One, champions aren't defined by the number of wins, but by how they respond when everything seems against them.